faith to me, and you shall have mercy. I need battle lords such as you.
Excalibur wasn't just made, it was forged, hammered into existence like the blade it's named after. Behind the glowing armor, the mist-soaked forests, and the dreamlike prophecy lies a creation far stranger than the legend itself. What looked like myth on screen was built from chaos, obsession, and moments so unreal they feel whispered from another world. And these 19 weird facts reveal just how wildly this film came to life.
Arians will knight me. There is night tonight. I can't offer you mercy. What's this? What's this?
Fact 1. The movie born from a lost. Lord of the Rings. Before Excalibur became the blazing, metallic fever dream we know today, John Boorman was chasing a very different kingdom, Middle-earth. In the mid-1970s, he poured years of effort into adapting The Lord of the Rings, crafting designs, storyboards, and entire visual worlds meant for hobbits, elves, and shadowed mountains. But the studios panicked at the scope. They called it too strange, too ambitious, too expensive. The project collapsed, leaving Boorman with sketches, concepts, and a wound that refused to close. Instead of abandoning everything, he did something unexpected. He reshaped that broken dream into Arthurian myth. Elements meant for Tolkien were reimagined. Soft magic became iron, elves became knights, and Middle-earth's mysticism was reborn as the glowing sorcery of Camelot. Some fans still speculate about which unused LOTR ideas slipped into Excalibur, though Boorman only confirmed the broad inspiration. What emerged wasn't an adaptation, it was a transformation. Out of one failed fantasy, another legend rose. Fact 2. A myth reforged, not retold. John Boorman didn't want to film Arthurian legend the way books presented it. Neat, chronological, and historically tidy. He wanted something wilder, closer to how myths actually feel. Fragmented, dreamlike, and shaped by memory rather than logic. His main source, Le Morte d'Arthur, spans centuries of battles, betrayals, prophecies, and visions. Instead of choosing one storyline, Boorman sliced them together like flashes from a single, enormous dream. Time bends, generations blur. One moment Arthur pulls a sword from stone, the next the kingdom is already collapsing under its own weight. Critics at the time complained, calling the structure confusing, even chaotic. But Boorman pushed back, saying legends were never meant to be linear. They're storms of emotion, retold differently with every voice. In Excalibur, that philosophy became the film's heartbeat. It doesn't recount Arthur's tale step by step, it summons it, raw, jagged, luminous, a myth not organized, but awakened. Fact 3. A production forged in mud, steel, and chaos. Filming Excalibur was less like making a movie and more like surviving a myth. Shot across Ireland's rain-soaked forests, bogs, and ancient ruins, the production plunged cast and crew into conditions that felt ripped from the dark ages. Armor rusted overnight, horses slipped in wetlands that swallowed boots whole. Fog rolled in without warning, erasing entire shots seconds before the cameras rolled. And through all of it, John Boorman pushed for realism, heavy armor instead of lightweight props, real locations instead of studio fakes, and long shooting days that blurred dawn into dusk. Actors often shivered beneath metal plates weighing over 50 pounds, their breath fogging inside helmets as crew members shouted through mist just to find their marks. What should have been a disaster slowly transformed into the film's secret weapon. The exhaustion, the cold, the bruises, they seeped into every frame. That's why Excalibur feels less filmed and more forged. The elements shaped it as much as the actors did. Fact 4. A fever dream that critics couldn't define. When Excalibur finally reached audiences, it didn't feel like a normal film. It felt like stepping into a dream you weren't sure you should be witnessing. Its world shimmered with silver armor, neon green forests, and lighting that looked half divine, half delirious. Critics didn't know what to make of it. Some praised it as visionary filmmaking, others dismissed it as chaotic madness wrapped in myth. Pauline Kael famously called it crazy integrity, a phrase that stuck because it captured the film's impossible balance. Wild, excessive, yet undeniably committed to its own truth. Boorman didn't want realism. He wanted prophecy, emotion, memory. Every frame pulses like something half-remembered from an ancient story told around a fire. Even scenes meant to be simple feel charged with ritual, as if the characters are acting out fate instead of dialogue. And that was the point. Excalibur wasn't built to make sense. It was built to be felt, and once it sinks into you, it never really leaves. Fact 5. The love scene filmed in frost, not fire. On screen, the moment between Lancelot and Guinevere burns with passion. Two lovers surrendering beneath a moonlit glow. But behind the camera, it was anything but warm. The scene was filmed deep in the Irish countryside at night, where temperatures dropped close to freezing. The actors weren't dealing with romance. They were fighting the cold with every breath. Fog machines froze. Crew members huddled in blankets between takes. Even the lights seemed to shiver in the wind. Because the actors wore almost nothing for the scene, they had to work through the cold carefully and safely, stopping often to warm up and avoid discomfort. John Boorman encouraged them not to play the moment as simple desire, but as destiny. Two lives crossing at the exact point where love begins to reshape fate. What looks like heat on screen was actually endurance, and professionalism, and sheer commitment. The frost didn't ruin the moment. It turned it mythic, giving the scene a strange, shimmering intensity that still unsettles viewers today. Fact 6. Merlin and Morgana's real tension turned into magic. The battle between Merlin and Morgana feels electric on screen, two forces clashing with wit, power, and ancient fury. But the tension didn't come only from acting. Nicole Williamson, Merlin, and Helen Mirren, Morgana, had a well-known history. Years before Excalibur, the two clashed during a turbulent stage production of Macbeth, where disagreements grew so intense that crews often kept them apart backstage. When Boorman cast them together, people thought he was inviting disaster, but he understood something others didn't. Real friction can ignite unforgettable performances. Instead of softening their dynamic, he let the discomfort simmer, trusting that the emotional charge would seep naturally into their scenes. And it did. Their interactions crackle with unease. Merlin's weary restraint pressed against Morgana's cold ambition. Every glare, every pause, every tense breath carries the weight of a past neither actor had forgotten. By the end of filming, their hostility had faded into mutual respect. Their storm didn't break the magic. It became the magic. Fact 7. The rewritten spell that changed the legend. Arthurian lore is filled with countless variations, but one moment is almost always the same. It's usually the enchantress Nimue, sometimes Vivian, who traps Merlin and takes his magic. John Boorman, however, wasn't interested in accuracy. He wanted impact. So he merged myths, rewrote destinies, and handed that pivotal betrayal to Morgana instead. It wasn't a random choice. It was a thematic one. By giving her the spell, Boorman fused desire, jealousy, ambition, and revenge into a single, devastating moment. Helen Mirren's hypnotic performance only amplified the shift, turning the scene into something primal and unsettling. Some fans speculate this change was Boorman's way of streamlining the sprawling mythology, while others think he wanted to deepen the emotional war between Merlin and Morgana. Whatever the reason, the decision reshaped the film's soul. The divine became human, the myth became intimate, and in that instant, Excalibur stopped merely retelling Arthur's world, it reinvented it. Fact 8. The color palette that spoke in prophecy. In Excalibur, color wasn't decoration, it was language. John Boorman designed the film so every hue carried symbolic weight, shaping emotion long before characters spoke. Green became the color of birth and renewal, glowing in the forests and bathing early scenes in a sense of awakening. Silver marked destiny, shimmering on armor, blades, and moonlit water, hinting at forces larger than any king. And then came red, temptation, blood, ruin. As the story darkened, the palette shifted with it. Greens faded, swallowed by cold steel grays. Silver lost its shine. Red crept in like sickness, staining the film with betrayal and decay. Viewers didn't always notice the transition consciously, but they felt it. By Arthur's final ride into battle, the world looks drained, exhausted, mourning itself. Some fans speculate Boorman used color as a visual prophecy, a coded warning of Camelot's fall. Whether intentional or instinctive, the palette becomes its own narrator, telling the kingdom's fate one dying shade at a time. Fact 9. The soundtrack that turned battle into ceremony. The battles in Excalibur don't just clash, they sing. Instead of using a traditional fantasy soundtrack, John Boorman built the film's musical identity out of something far more operatic. He blended Trevor Jones's original score with powerful classical pieces like Wagner's Tristan und Isolde and Orff's O Fortuna, creating a soundscape that felt ritualistic rather than realistic. Every swing of a sword echoed like a prophecy. Every march sounded like fate advancing. The music didn't simply accompany the action, it elevated it, turning combat into a solemn ceremony where death felt both tragic and inevitable. Some fans speculate that Boorman chose Wagner to amplify the mythic tone, while others believe he wanted emotional weight that no typical score could achieve. Whatever the motive, the effect is undeniable. By the final battle, the choir wraps around Arthur's last stand like a requiem, transforming destruction into something hauntingly beautiful. The soundtrack doesn't just define Excalibur, it haunts it, echoing long after the steel stops ringing. Fact 10. The castle that gave legend real bones. To ground the film in a world that felt ancient and untamed, John Boorman needed a location that carried real history in its stones. He found it in Ireland's Cahir Castle, a fortress carved from grey rock and centuries of battles. Instead of building backlot sets, Boorman staged Arthur's rise in a place that had survived real wars, real kings, and real bloodshed. The castle's mossy walls, narrow passages, and looming towers gave the scenes a weight no studio could replicate. Rain poured through open battlements, mud coated the courtyard until actors slipped in full armor. The river Suir, flowing at the castle's edge, became part of the film's soundscape, roaring beneath the action like a witness. Some fans speculate that the fortress almost feels like another character, shaping the film with its chilly echoes and ancient presence. And in many ways, it did. Cahir Castle didn't just host the legend of Excalibur, it fused with it, lending the myth a backbone of real medieval memory. Fact 11. The lost hour that changed the legend forever. When Excalibur was first assembled, it wasn't a film, it was a monument. John Boorman's original cut stretched past 3 hours, weaving quests, visions, and side stories meant to mirror the full rise and collapse of Arthur's kingdom. But the studio panicked. They wanted something shorter, something that could fit into a single theatrical run. Boorman was forced to carve away nearly an hour of footage, reshaping the myth with every slice. Entire character arcs vanished. Duels were shortened. Prophecies dissolved into fragments. One deleted moment, Lancelot rescuing Guinevere from bandits, survives only in an early trailer, sparking fan speculation about what else was lost. Boorman later admitted the cuts hurt, but he also said the fragments created a dreamlike quality he hadn't originally planned. That's why Excalibur feels like memory instead of narrative. Haunted, incomplete, echoing with what's missing. The version released in 1981 wasn't the whole legend. It was what remained after Camelot itself fell to time. Fact 12. The sword that combined two myths into one. In traditional Arthurian lore, two blades shaped the king's destiny. The sword in the stone, which proves his birthright, and Excalibur, the enchanted weapon gifted later by the Lady of the Lake. But John Boorman made a bold choice. He fused both legends into a single, radiant sword. It wasn't an oversight. It was a deliberate act of storytelling. Boorman believed that collapsing the two myths would strengthen the symbolism, uniting Arthur's identity and his destiny under one gleaming icon. Instead of separating proof and power, the film makes them inseparable, turning Excalibur into the ultimate symbol of legitimacy, fate, and downfall. Some fans speculate that this decision streamlined the sprawling mythology, while others see it as a poetic reflection of Arthur's singular path. Whether praised or debated, the change left a lasting mark on how many viewers now remember the legend. In Boorman's vision, one sword rises from the stone and returns to the lake, a perfect circle of destiny. Fact 13. The armor that became a personal relic. Among the many striking costumes in Excalibur, Morgana's silver armor stands out as one of the film's most haunting images. Serpentine, elegant, and cold as moonlit steel. After production ended, the piece didn't disappear into storage the way most props do. It stayed with director John Boorman for years, kept as a symbolic reminder of the film's intensity and the artistry behind it. Interviews and behind-the-scenes accounts mention that Boorman developed a deep respect for Helen Mirren's performance, and some fans have speculated that he held onto the armor because it represented both her transformation and the film's mystical identity. While not all details about the armor's later life are fully documented, what is known is that Boorman treasured it as more than a costume. It became a keepsake from a project that shaped his career and imagination. For many viewers, Morgana's armor remains one of the most unforgettable visuals in Excalibur, a relic of shadow, power, and cinematic magic. Fact 14. The unknown cast who became future legends. Before they ruled galaxies, kingdoms, and blockbuster franchises, the cast of Excalibur were simply young actors trudging through mud and wearing armor that felt heavier with every hour. Liam Neeson, Patrick Stewart, and Gabriel Byrne, now household names, were complete unknowns when they stepped onto Boorman's mist-covered sets. None arrived as stars. All were hungry, unpolished, and thrown into a production that demanded real physical endurance. Boorman put them through sword drills, early morning marches, and endless retakes until exhaustion became part of their performance. You can see that raw intensity in their eyes, unwrapped determination sharpened by cold rain and long nights. Some fans like to speculate that this brutal training helped shape their later careers, though what's confirmed is simpler. Excalibur gave each of them a first real taste of mythic storytelling on a grand scale. When you watch the film today, you're witnessing the moment three future icons began their climb, long before Hollywood crowned them. Fact 15. The film that helped revive Ireland's movie industry. When Excalibur arrived in Ireland, the national film industry was barely holding on. Political unrest, low funding, and a lack of large-scale productions had pushed filmmakers elsewhere. Then John Boorman brought his Arthurian epic to Irish soil, and the impact was immediate. Hundreds of local crew members, artisans, and extras were hired. Workshops that had been quiet for years suddenly filled with blacksmiths forging armor, costume makers stitching cloaks, and horse trainers preparing for battle scenes. Every stretch of misty forest and every stone castle on screen came from Ireland, giving the world a glimpse of the country's cinematic potential. Some film historians note that Excalibur didn't just boost local employment. It helped reawaken Ireland's reputation as a place where big, ambitious movies could thrive. While later successes like Braveheart and King Arthur would draw even more attention, it was Excalibur that helped spark the revival. Myth on screen became momentum in real life, breathing new life into an industry ready to rise again. Fact 16. The sleeper hit. No one expected to succeed. When Excalibur was nearing release, studios had low expectations. It was strange, violent, operatic, and nothing like the neat fantasy films audiences were used to. Test screenings left executives uneasy. Some viewers were mesmerized, others confused, and a few simply overwhelmed by its fever dream energy. But then something unpredictable happened. Word of mouth spread. People told friends about the armor that gleamed like glass, the music that thundered like prophecy, the violence that felt ritualistic rather than gory. On an $11 million budget, the film earned over $34 million worldwide, transforming from an uncertain gamble into a genuine sleeper hit. Critics remained divided, but artists were stunned. At Cannes, the film won the award for Best Artistic Contribution, while its cinematography received Oscar and BAFTA nominations. Some fans speculate that its raw imperfections are exactly what made it unforgettable. Excalibur didn't triumph by playing it safe. It triumphed by daring to be unlike anything else. Fact 17. The film critics couldn't categorize. When Excalibur hit theaters, critics found themselves grasping for words. It defied every category they tried to place it in. Was it high art or high madness? A faithful myth or a fever dream hallucination? The New York Times called it beautiful nonsense, while others praised it as visionary and intoxicating. Boorman himself said he didn't want audiences to understand the film. He wanted them to feel it. And that's exactly what happened. Viewers walked out dazed, haunted by faces lit like stained glass and battles that looked like rituals carved from ancient memory. Some reviewers argued the film was too strange to survive. Others believed its intensity made it unforgettable. Over the years, its reputation only grew, with modern filmmakers and fans embracing its unapologetically mythic tone. Today, Excalibur stands in a category of its own, neither conventional fantasy nor historical drama, but something dreamlike, symbolic, and defiantly alive. You don't watch Excalibur, you surrender to it. Fact 18. The film that shaped modern fantasy directors. Every generation of filmmakers has a movie that burns into their imagination, and for many modern directors, Excalibur was that spark. Its glowing armor, operatic lighting, and mist-drenched world left an imprint that never faded. Guillermo del Toro has openly praised the film, describing it as a vision that seared itself into his creative mind. Fans often point out how echoes of Excalibur appear in the mythic shadows of Pan's Labyrinth. Zack Snyder's bold chiaroscuro lighting in 300 and Man of Steel has drawn comparisons to Boorman's glowing, metallic palette, and Ridley Scott's sweeping battles and gritty medieval atmosphere in Gladiator and Kingdom of Heaven mirror the raw physicality Excalibur embraced decades earlier. While some of these parallels are fan interpretations rather than confirmed intent, the influence is undeniable. Boorman didn't just adapt a legend, he reshaped how cinematic myth could look and feel. The film's visual spell still lingers, rippling through modern fantasy like a ghostly reflection of the sword itself. Fact 19. The controversial scene that sparked lasting debate. One of Excalibur's most talked about moments is the scene where Uther, disguised by Merlin's magic, enters Igraine's bedchamber. The moment was meant to feel unsettling, mythic, and morally charged. But what truly shocked audiences was the casting choice. The actress playing Igraine was Katrina Boorman, the director's daughter. This fact fueled years of debate, with some viewers wondering why John Boorman would involve his own child in such an emotionally heavy scene. Interviews and behind-the-scenes comments clarify that the moment was handled carefully and professionally, with both father and daughter discussing the artistic purpose and boundaries beforehand. Katrina later explained that she felt respected and protected during filming, and that the scene was crafted to reflect mythic tragedy rather than explicit realism. While speculation and discussion still circulate among fans, the documented truth is that the production approached the moment with caution. The controversy didn't overshadow the film, but it did add another layer to its complex legacy. In the end, Excalibur stands as more than a film. It's a vision carved from chaos, artistry, and myth. These 19 strange facts reveal how its beauty came from risk, experimentation, and the sheer force of imagination. Decades later, its glow still lingers, inspiring filmmakers and unsettling viewers in equal measure. And once you understand what truly forged this legend, the film becomes something deeper, an echo you can't forget.